All right. Hi, welcome to my culminating task on my middle school math class. So my middle school math lesson has the contents of going to give you a little background of Unit 3, the learner's profile, formative assessments, flexible grouping, student conferencing, and then learning, growth in space, and teaching. So I put a little quote by Katherine Johnson, an African-American mathematician, where she says, "We will always have STEM with us. Some things will drop out of the public eye and go away, but there will always be science, engineering, and technology. And there will always, always be mathematics." And so this is something I always tell my students, not this quote specifically, but pretty much for them to connect with math, that math is in a lot of things that they do. It's just that they don't do it the way that I teach it because they're more applying it for their lives. And so to give a little background of my unit, that focusing on where they feel more welcomed, they feel safe, they feel a little bit more learner focused on them. So Unit 3 puts on a heavy emphasis and focus on slopes and linear equations on an introductory level. The main focus will be based on the following. Week 1 will be patterns of proportions, which is exactly what I'm doing this week, actually. Week 2, comparing proportions and slopes. Week 3, review and practice, introduction to linear equations, finding y-intercepts and linear equations, graphing it, using it, applying real-world problems, real-life project, and then final and wrap-up. So that's kind of like how my outline I'm hoping to portray to show a little bit more learner focus levels. The planning UDL style that I hope to emphasize in that has been actually missing from my class is in the engagement section, optimizing individual choice and autonomy, minimize threat and distractions, increase oriented feedback. For representation, offer ways of displaying information, illustrate through multiple media, guide information processing, visualization, and manipulation. Action and expression, I will try to do, or what I see was missing was build fluencies with graduated levels of support, practice, and performance. Support planning and strategy development, and enhance capacity for monitoring progress. And so for my engagement, I'm hoping to do like break cards, to where I see where my kids will have their cards and they would use them for break time. So they kind of get to choose when they want their break for 5 minutes. And those type of things. Another one is choice boards in showing competency. So they get to choose how they want to show for the day, what they want to learn. And I'll give them like about 9 choices, whether they want to draw, sing, rap, any of the choices that they come up with, to show that they are understanding and going with the lesson at the moment. Also providing opportunities to lead or teach the class, like having my kids do it rather than me. Giving them opportunities to run the class. The ways I would try to minimize threat and distractions is creating an accepting and supportive classroom climate, which is what I try to do every single day. However, variation in pace of work, length of work sessions, availability of breaks or timeouts, or timing or sequence of activities. So pretty much breaking it into even more down to where we have those moments of they're not getting distracted too easily, or they're getting bored. And creation of class routines. That is something that I'm still building upon and still working on. Like there are class routines for the beginning, but sometimes the middle and the end is a little wonky. So that's where I'm still supporting and building. Increase mastery oriented feedback. This one I am trying to, where I do feedback more often, timely and specific to my students, provide feedback that models how to incorporate evaluation, including identifying patterns of errors and wrong answers into positive strategies for future success. So in other words, giving them feedback that will help them into their next problem or anything like that. For representation, offer ways of displaying information, so that's different strategies of presenting information, whether it be visual, like for example, I can either throw a video or throw or even like have it verbally said, just verbally said, physically reading, or even just having different ways to display what I'm presenting for the class. Also to illustrate through multiple media, which is present key concepts in one form of symbolic representation, whether it's an expository or a math equation, but also in an alternative form, whether it's a math equation, but then now we're using it as a graph. Or even how I mentioned earlier, like one is paper pencil, one is a video, one is through a song, one is just different ways that, or a dance, different bases on making sure my students are feeling like they are able to grasp the lesson. And another one is guide information processing, visualization, manipulation. The way that I would do that is have more interactive models for them to interact with. So that means physical, hands-on, and also provide options for organizational methods like tables, and algorithms processing for that method. So like for slope, exactly, be like, okay, how do we do this table to show the slope? How do we, and also other ways that we can show that organizational of slope and patterns. For action and expressions, this will be used more so while building fluency, it's me scaffolding it enough to where my students feel like they're doing checklists, they're the template of how to do something, and just pretty much for them to start from level 1 or whatever level that they're at and build up from there. Next is when supporting planning and strategy development is providing that checklist. Like, oh, is my slope something that is constant? Is my slope something that is equal to something? Is my slope moving upwards or is my slope going downwards? So it's like that things that they're looking for and those different steps and figuring out what exactly do they need to learn and where are they struggling. Enhance capacity for monitoring progress, so show representations before and after, or for me, pretty much that means when it comes to my students, do a lot better in tracking them and their progress. So the learner's profile. In here in my slide deck, I have the pre-math mindset survey. So that's the first one that I did with them, just to get to know them a bit from first quarter, just to build it. And so the purpose of that I did was to understand students' relationship with math and understand students on a personal level. And the way I use it is relevancy lessons and provide safe space to learn. And so pretty much I'm reading it to see, are they safe enough to learn math? And to see where are their mindsets in math, because if their mindset is already negative, I know that it's going to take a while for them to really feel that they have math in control. And that's why in my new learner's profile, I not only did a before, but I also did an after revision to where the purpose is updated relationship with math. Like after you went through everything, is everything okay now? Are you feeling like you have math more in control? Is math more centered in your life, or is it still something that you just see as numbers? And also to use input to improve teaching and community relevant lessons. And so for the formative assessments, in math department, we use the common formative assessment, which is CFA. Another one, but in my class, I use exit tickets, openers, temperature checks, classwork, collaborative activities that I would collect. Those are just different ways of formative assessment to understand if my students themselves are getting it and students as a collective are getting it. And so I use the collection of formative assessment through a Google Sheet. And that is the way I do it is through I would have to protect my students. I use a student code name. And then this is your scale score based on their star. And based on what I'm collecting, where is so like this is actually a last unit, but for this year, I have something like common form senses, where's their struggles, their strength, and based on the reteach, did it improve when it got to the summative? And it's something like that that would just help me determine that kind of things. The quarter 2 one is so for this unit is still in building up. So that's the reason why I'm not showing it yet. But pretty much it has the same kind of format. So I'll have like something with formative assessment 1, and the different methods that I am teaching to check in with them so that they understand, are they understanding slope or are they not yet? For flexible grouping, I would have 3 levels. It would be the homogeneous level of groups where students are arranged based off level of understanding according to their star or according to their level group in the student's curriculum. So if I'm seeing that I have kids who are struggling in my math class, I will put them together as a group. And then the stronger ones are in that group. And then I have the ones kind of in the middle. So I'll be kind of like that, like those kind of things, or based on their star if it's during their math intervention time. Student-led groups is where I build students self-select. So I will have the students self-select and have them choose wisely on who their partner is going to be, where it's building trust with them and teaching them to choose the right partners in order to be successful. Because I know some of them are like to connect with a lot of their friends instead. I mean, it's a great time to build relationship also, but it's also a reminder that this is focus time. So it's about setting those boundaries. And then also too, I will also use the learner profile pods. The way I would use the learner profile is like similar hobbies, similar mindsets around math. Like I will have the ones who feel like they're like negative or like I feel like math is not as important in my life together. And it sounds weird. You want the positive and negative together, but really you want reason why, because you want the same attitude to where they can build together and realize and understand that, oh, wait, we're both struggling in math. You know what? Let's build together on how we can improve that. And so it's all about having that, like realizing like, oh, I'm not alone mindset pretty much. And also to a time to build trust and community around those profiles. So for student conferencing, the way I would do that for this unit especially is to check in on progress. See what part they are still struggling in. And so I have my students do, our math department has our students do these icon statements. I can use different triangles to explain slope. I can make connections between proportional relationships, line and linear equations, and so on. And so our students check in with pre. Then when we get a little more to the middle, that's when we start going up with, I can talk with them and coming up with goals before we get to the middle of the unit and figuring out where do they want to excel in. And then let students choose what steps they want to take in order to be successful. Whether it's, oh, I want to have more practice. You know what? I think if I have a video to watch and continue working with that video, maybe I'll be a little bit more successful. And also too, they can choose what they want to work on. So like right now, everybody is working on the top 2, but maybe they realize later that, you know what, now that I got the top 2, you know what, let me try the next 2. And so they have the choice of where they want to learn after that. And so learning, growth, and space. So my space, this is actually kind of like the before section. It's as it is best as possible using Canva, to where my class is, where I have 2 rows of single desk type styles where there's no real collaboration unless you are sitting with a partner. Then you have a little bit more collaborative space to where you are grouped around, and then I will come here actually and do like little mini conferences or small groups. So these are like my little small group side. And of course my desk and my board and my shelf. What I'm hoping, even though I know I'm in a portable, if my portable was a little bit bigger, I would add this little corner for the students to have that time to de-stress, have that time to be away from work, like have that little break time. Like I'll call it like the little breakaway corner, pretty much. Or they can like take 5 minutes with their friends to talk story, to really get it out of their system, to really like, hey, you know what, I'm really struggling. Let's talk about something else. And where pretty much it's just like they have that little contingency of where they can pretty much do what they can do while also still having these collaborative conversations in all the groups. And so I'm hoping to go back to this actually. This is how right here, the design started and then it ended up like this. But now I'm hoping to go back like this where they're a little bit more collaborative, they're a little bit more contingency on their mindsets and realizing that they're not alone in everything, even though it feels like this. Cause I feel like if you're sitting on this side, you feel a little bit more alone. But if you sit on this side, you're not as alone. And then also too, this will be right here, my also more one-on-one conference spaces where if I'm helping with a student in work, and then this side will be my one-on-one more so like, hey, let's talk. Where are we struggling? How are you doing? Like my check-ins. So I'm more like one-on-one work side and one-on-one conference side. And so the areas in growth and reflection, my reflection, in organization, I feel I need to do better in data collecting, classroom managing, and student-led organization. So where students are a little bit more hands-on into their organization of their classroom, the way that it's running, the way that like having jobs in the classroom, just so that they feel like they have that control, but also too, it's controlling them in what I mean, they're more mentor to like, hey, stay within these guidelines and you'll be fine. And you guys take the reins while also having them run the classroom. And so that's one of my goals while building relevant connections, whereas community-based lessons connect with students with math. So like collecting their lives with math and also multiple outlets on how do we learn math. And also multiple outlets on how do we breathe so where we don't feel overwhelmed by math. And then the consistencies of holding my ground, mean what I say, and also data and feedback to my students continuously. And so that's my way of, I'm hoping to be a little bit more learner-centered, a little bit more having this become a little bit more structured to my students by doing these three main things and while incorporating the UDL styles of the classroom and helping my students feel like they are advocates for their learning. And so I just want to say thank you for listening and aloha.